it's Ree Graham. You may know me for being a world-renowned rapper, or you may know me as that one kid in that one AP class. But before entering that class, I thought that there was a systematic approach to succeeding in English classes. I believe that by understanding the basic themes and ideas of the literary works required for English class, one could essentially guarantee a good grade, without having to fully push oneself to improve in any way. My biggest challenge was having to actually memorize useless details about a book for a test that only focused on basic topics. Now, as I approach the end of my first quarter, I realized that I have grown substantially as a reader and as a writer. Vladimir Nabokov and Francine Prose, who I regard as English sages, list many different yet important skills that good readers and good writers should have. I have noticed in myself that I have developed in two different areas. One is that I've learned the importance of going into a piece of literature with an open mind. When I first found out that I was going to have to read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn over the summer, I immediately began to judge the book without even knowing what it was about. I avoided the novel like the plague for as long as I could, until I finally had to buckle down and crack it open. At first, I was appalled by the length of the chapters and how uninterested I was in the topic. My reading responses that I turned in were complete garbage, ideas that I just threw together so that I could say, hey, I completed the task. But here's an excerpt from one of my deeply thought out responses that really shows the level of quality that they were at. Huck even encounters slave captures, which were ordinary for the time period that the story took place. And I have a quote, "Right then along comes a skiff with two men in it with guns." And as you can see in my rest of my paper, I have 4 other quotes in the first page with about a few other lines that provide zero analysis for those quotes, so it was a pretty solid entry on my part. But as it started up again, and then we deeply analyzed the book in class, I kind of began to enjoy the book and its plot, contrary to what I had thought of the book during the summer. And as I prepared for the Huck Finn test, I liked looking back through the book and online for 20 specific purposes for details in the book. And as you can see in my close to perfect score in the writing responses of the Huck Finn test, I say close to perfect because I messed up here one time, I grew from my meager understanding of the novel to having a lot more knowledge pertaining to the deeper ideas that are present within the novel. Now, don't think that I'm saying that I realize that I actually am thankful for reading Huck Finn over the summer, because I'm not. What I did realize was that it was important to at least give every literary work a chance to be potentially enjoyable without prejudging it. Now, another example of my failure to approach a piece of literature without prejudgment was when I read Richard Nixon's Checkers speech. I went into it thinking that Nixon was some idiot that got into trouble from the whole Watergate incident, but then I thought that this speech was going to be like some dumb apology or a list of excuses. But as I read the text and answered the reading journal questions, I began to realize how Nixon's argument was very complex and filled with various strategies. And then when we discussed it in class, I gained even more respect for his powerful speech and all the thoughts that went into it. I even learned techniques for how to agree with the audience while still showing how their ideas are incorrect. I wrote, in Checkers, he doesn't straight up say that the advice is wrong. The audience is wrong. Can't read my own handwriting. But he implies it, and he kind of implies it in a kind way. Now, I also wrote, it was wrong, but it wasn't morally wrong. Now, I could utilize these same methods that I learned from Nixon if I ever have to argue against an audience that has already made up their decision on an issue. Now, the second area that I've grown in as a reader is I've learned how to deeply analyze a literary work with a scientist's mind. Whether it be for fondling an author's specific details or for observing different rhetorical devices or strategies, I have improved greatly. When I first read The Appendix by Frederick Douglass, I wrote very weak responses for the journal questions. More specifically, when I wrote my responses to the questions relating to pathos, they were jet skiing all over the place. You see, one of the questions is, what specific techniques does he employ to elicit an emotional reaction? And my quality response is, he uses strong, powerful descriptive words to describe the inhumanity and hypocrisy of the Southern Christians. Yeah, it wasn't that good. But when it came to writing my synthesis essay about Frederick Douglass and Benjamin Banneker, my level of understanding for Douglass's specific techniques and examples of pathos led me to choose to argue that Douglass's choice to hone in on inducing religious anger made his argument stronger than Banneker's. I included ideas like, from my Banneker, ideas like Douglass is able to fortify his argument and arouse emotion in his audience by including religious anger. I also have ideas like, even though it may seem foolish to offend part of one's indirect audience, Douglass chooses to insult for one important reason. He hopes that by making his indirect audience mad, they will realize their wrongs in their actions. As you can see, or hear in your case, my points are immensely deeper than my skin-deep responses in my reading journal. Another example of development in the ability to analyze as a scientist is in my journal responses to Benjamin Banneker. Even though I picked up on how Banneker could have used sir as an insult and not in a way of respect. And specifically, I wrote, Benjamin Banneker uses pathos when he repeats the word sir at the beginning of many paragraphs. The sarcasm is well used and it is easy to identify. This is immensely different than my level of analysis in my sophomore year of high school. I would have never picked up on the possibility of sarcasm and would have just thought of Benjamin Banneker as a polite and respectful individual. And with Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, I would have never realized in my previous years of high school all the various syllogisms that are present in the text. Heck, I wouldn't even know what a syllogism is. I still don't even know how to pronounce it. However, I haven't suddenly become a master of reading and writing, worthy of becoming Nabokov and prosa's protege. I still have many different areas to grow in. One area I specifically am awful at is rereading text. Sometimes reading a piece of literature can take me ages. I don't even consider the idea of rereading. Even if it is a piece of literature that I enjoyed reading, like Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, due to the sheer number of pages and amount of text and small font, I disregard the idea of reading entirely. I usually think to myself that if I miss anything, I'll just get the info in class. However, by doing so, I'm not learning how to be a good independent reader. I'm just teaching myself how to be a leech for information. Another area I struggle with is annotation. My annotation is not close at all to the level that a good reader should be at. Even though I have improved from just underlining the main ideas of a text, I still lack the ability to put my exact thoughts into words on the margins of the literature. Now, this first quarter has been quite a doozy. My ideas of how to succeed in English class were quickly destroyed, and my brain got filled with new ideas and information. Even though I'm not thankful for the amount of workload that this class provides, I'm appreciative of the growth that I have gained as a reader and writer. English is used everywhere, for almost everything. I'm glad that I now have a greater understanding of such an important tool that I will utilize for the rest of my life. Word out.